Hi everybody, I'm Dane, obviously owner of Toledo Twisted Iron. Um, so let me just start off. I'm going to give you a little background of where I came from and why I'm where I'm at today. I started out working in a factory. It's called MTS Seating for 12 and a half years. I've learned like press operations, powder coating, upholstery work, welding, all sorts of different operations in manufacturing. And especially also I learned how to refine all those skills and look for attention to detail in certain products and things that go on. So that's helped me develop part of my skills as an artist. The other part was within that time frame when I was working there, I started taking classes at Toledo Museum of Art. And what it was, I was taking blacksmithing classes there. And as soon as I started there, it kind of like tied everything I was doing together. It's one of those things where you just, all of a sudden it's like a spark and you're just like, okay, this is it. This is exactly what I want to do. Because as I was a little kid, I've always wanted to start my own business and do my own thing. And I always had this drive to want to be somebody bigger than myself. And right in that moment, it was like one of those things where I was just like, this is it. This is my life. This is what I'm going to do. So from there on, as I was working at MTS Seating, I started Toledo Twisted Iron. MTS Seating was a very demanding job. I was working 50, 60 hours a week. And on top of that, I'm trying to start this business, Toledo Twisted Iron. And then, so on top of that, I'm just working like probably 100 hours a week, just getting everything moving and going forward. So, that being said, eventually what happened was I started seizing these opportunities. I started working with big artists such as Davide Salvadori, which is a world-renowned glass artist. I started working with his representative, and then he started pushing me into all these avenues. And this is all through the Toledo Museum of Art that helped me push me into these avenues. And so one day I went to Davide and I was like, I really want to make it big. I really want to strive and push this business to the next level. He's like, Dane, I can provide you with that opportunity, but you got to seize the moment. You got to make it your own. And right then and there, I just realized, like, this is it. Okay. So he started doing that, and eventually I started working in Chicago and doing big projects in Chicago. And then on top of that, I'm working here in Toledo, and I'm started working with designers and builders of restaurants and companies, and they kept coming to me like, hey, we have ideas, we have these things, can you help us to develop them? I'm like, great, yeah, sure, let's make this happen. So one of my first biggest projects in the city of Toledo was building out Veritas Cork and Craft, which was underneath Commodore Perry. So, and then once I built that, Black Cloister got a hold of me, and I built the bars in Black Cloister. And then year went by, a couple things happened. Business started to fail a little bit because I'm like, okay, I'm making it, and then all of a sudden, I'm getting to this point, and I decided, I was like, okay, might have to go get a part-time job, or I can just really push forward and make this happen. Because I knew if I got that part-time job when that was happening within this period, that I was admitting to failure, as I'm trying to progress as an artist and build my business. So what I did, I put the, fist to the floor, if you will, and just made stuff happen. I started making phone calls. Next thing I know, I landed this job with the Mud Hens, building out the fencing for Mud Hens. Next thing led to building this project for ProMedica, and it just kept progressing. And it's just like major drive, and my will not to give up just made this all happen. So now we're in talks with Boston and trying to figure out, if we're going to get this job in Boston. And then we have some projects in Cleveland, got projects in Chicago, big, really decent sized projects. But now it's coming to a point where it's being fluid. It's coming in and it's coming in. So it's a really cool thing to be in this position right now. It was really tough, but it's rewarding at the same time. You just got to really drive and just keep pushing as you go forward. But my biggest thing is I always look outside myself, and I always push myself the hardest I possibly can. Because what I want to do is make people influenced from what I'm doing, and that's the thing I want to do. I want people to be inspired, you know, and look beyond themselves with everything else, you know, that I'm working on. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me and just kind of where I go with things and how I really push myself to do the best I possibly can. Now with art drives community is what I'm talking about tonight. Comes down to every community needs art to grow. And the biggest thing about art is it brings people, like I said, from out within themselves. It makes, you know, say you come into a situation. How many people have come into a situation where you're just like stuck? You know, you're just stuck. And you just don't know where to go. Yeah, everybody has, you know? And one of those things is where you can, like, all right, I'm gonna go for a little trip. I'm just gonna go down here. And you say you go down to Echo. And you sit there and you walk through Echo and you're like, wow, okay. What did it take to build this? What did it take to do this? It took a lot of imagination, a lot of hard work, a lot of just physical things to make this thing possible to be standing in front of what you're looking at, you know? And sometimes that's the key to making it, you know, making that mind spark, you know, like, oh, okay, well, I see how this guy did this, and I see this, or it could just be something fluid and dynamic that you see in the landscape that really just inspires you, you know? And that's what art's about. And it's also about bringing community together. So when you like put a large scale sculpture like this in the city of Toledo, especially you know, downtown in the middle of everything, where there's no way you can mistake where it's at. You know, everybody's like, oh, go right down to Old Promenade Park. Everybody knows where Old Promenade Park is, so you're gonna go right down there and you're gonna find it. And you know, and then once you start creating events and concerts and all sorts of different things around the sculpture, it's going to create more of a buzz. It's going to create everybody to want to be more influential into the community and help the community grow. So that's the biggest thing about why art drives community. Like the murals downtown off of Adams, that's a big thing too. How many times have anyone here has gone down to the murals down there and take pictures in front of them? A lot of people have. So, you know, it's just creating that thing about getting out and enjoying the community, see what's going on, and then picking up off of people, and then even just going to your local, you go take a picture you go take a picture down here on Adams Street, and then you go to local shops around that place because you're like, oh, well, okay, I took my picture, now let's go explore the area. So that's what art does, and that's what it's about. And, you know, along from just influencing people to look beyond themselves and really try to figure things out. This is a big drive of mine. That's why I do what I do. I want to, let alone that sculpture being a feather in my cap, my biggest thing is to see people grow from that. And one of my biggest rewards was when I was down for Momentum, I was doing a demo down there in front of the sculpture, and people were coming down, and I was seeing them being proud of their city again. And that's pretty amazing, to be able to know you made that impact. And then watching everybody just go through it and touching it and feeling this 100-year-old material for the first time in their lives, and just you know, and trying to figure this out and figure out what's going on with the sculpture and listening to the sounds of what it's making. It's just amazing. You know, it's an amazing sight for me to see, and that's my biggest reward out of the whole situation as an artist. And you know, and that's what drives me every day to do bigger and better things every day, as much as I possibly can. And then, you know, just I'm hoping that, you know, Echo in turn, in the long run, just inspires people to do better and bigger things with themselves, you know, and helps the Toledo community to grow bigger and bigger every day. I think that's the most important thing, because, you know, we've been hurting for a while as a community, and I think this being said, is going to really help, because one of the biggest things that I said when I talked to ProMedica when they came to me, I said, I told them, I said, hey, you know, they said, we want little sculptures. That's what their idea was first. They want little sculptures around the park. And I told them, I was like, you know what? No. I was like, we need to make an impact. We need to do something monumental, saying, hey, we're not going anywhere. And we need something, just a statement. And I said, we need a Chicago bean for the city of Toledo. And as soon as I said that, everybody's like, on the board was like, you're right on. This is exactly what we need. And so, you know, we just worked hard and made it all happen. So, and just to be able to be a part of that is a huge, huge honor for myself. I'm hoping we are able to develop more art in the community and be able to keep moving forward, especially not only just myself, but like Gathered Gallery, which is a glass gallery. They are huge advocates in the community and doing big parts of the community, doing glass for the community. And then Graphite Design is another one, and they're doing big stuff like the Toledo Zoo. They're the ones who do most of the stuff you see in Toledo Zoo, like the big creatures and crabs and everything else through the Toledo Zoo. They're the guys who do that stuff. So and that's what attracts you to go there. You're like, oh wow, let alone seeing the animals, I gotta go see this cool thing over here, because it's just something that you never see every day. So that's why I look at art as driving community. It just it really helps people to want to go and let alone look outside themselves, but go and see things and see something new and experience new and different things. So, but that's pretty much about it that I have to say. If I'm open to questions, if anybody has any questions.
So you talked about making things happen. It's kind of like a statement that people say, but there's a lot of things that happen behind that statement. How much did you chase after finding new clients, or did they just come to you from recommendations?
So, chasing after clients and making things happen. Yeah, so a lot of times I would go in and I would put myself in front of the client and saying, hey, look, this is exactly what I can do. This is what I'm capable of. And I'm also open to ideas of growing myself to do even more. And the biggest thing is I never said no. I always said, yes, we can make it happen. And I'm always up for a challenge. So that's what helped me push forward. And then eventually what happened was that turned over to other clients. And then that's where the recommendations came in, from other clients that I've worked with, where I just put my face in front of them and said, I can do this. So.
How do you deal with heavy criticism of your art, especially when you're first getting started? And when you're first getting started, you're not necessarily at the level you want to be, but it takes time. You got to find people who will encourage you, but you don't always find that right away. How do you push through that?
So how you look past the criticism and find the encouragement. My biggest thing is that I look at art is the most criticized thing ever, right? And it really is. It's very criticized. It's very subjective. It's one thing or another, and it evokes very amounts of emotions in everybody. And you know what? The biggest thing I do is I take all those things as constructive criticism at certain points. Some people are just like, all right, whatever. It's too much. But certain people have good ideas and certain things and certain ideas that you can just take that in and be like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe I can improve this over here a little bit. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can refine that a little bit more. So those are things that you gotta kind of sift through all when people criticize your work at certain points. The other thing is with my work, when I do things, I strive to make things aesthetically pleasing and right at certain points. But that's just me, and those are things I've learned through dealing with fine art. There's kind of a standard at certain points. But then there's artwork that I've seen just way off the board that I totally love, and everybody else is like, no, that's just, I can't deal with it. So it just depends. It's a very subjective thing that you just got to kind of sift through and figure out, I'll give you a plain example. This is the best example I can give you of artwork, is that, say you take one song, right? And it's made to evoke one feeling. You put that in front of 1,000 people. Guess what it's going to probably do? Invoke that one feeling, right? So you take your piece of artwork and you put it in front of that 1,000 people. Guess what? Each individual person's probably going to have a different idea about that piece of work instead of that one feeling you're trying to invoke. Do you understand? So it just depends on how you build it and how you want people to look at it at certain points too. So.
Well, I think we share a mission of empowering people to make their communities better, and I think through art you do that. You inspire people, and it encourages people to, that it brings that empowerment to themselves to make themselves better. You mentioned a couple times about coming to points of you had to make a decision. You could fall back into what's comfortable, or you could take a step into something that was maybe a little bit more unknown. What were the self-limiting beliefs that you had to overcome, and what are some of the things that you did to work through that?
My biggest thing of what I do, and I've learned and I've kind of trained myself to do this at certain points, is for one, I don't say no. I always say yes. And two, I learned to take these fears and anxieties and crazy things that go on in certain decisions, and I just focus it. I'm like, focus it in the positive energy. So I take it and I just focus it right back into my work. So if a client comes to me and say, we want this and we need this now, and I'm just like, okay, let's do this, you know. And then I just take all that energy and just focus it to make it a positive thing. And you know, it just in turn, I mean, the results, I mean, you can see them. That's a lot. That's what's, you know, that's what comes out of it most of the time. So
what project are you working on right now that you're most excited about?
we're actually working on a few projects right now. One of them is we just put in a bid for Boston not too long ago. We are the top 4 artists out of 91 artists that submitted. And we just submitted the proposal not too long ago, so we're waiting on the committee to vote on the artist, which one they want. Another one is we're working on Hensville right now. We've got a big project possibly coming up with Hensville, so we're really pushing for that. And we just got through a bunch of city litigation, so I think we'll be good to go on that. And then we got another project in Cleveland that we're looking at as well, a pretty big project out there as well. So can't really say a whole lot about much of it because it's all kind of one of those things. But yeah, we have some pretty big stuff coming up. And then on top of that, we do a lot of small scale stuff. We're taking in railing jobs. We just finished up a project over at Stranahan, working with them. We do a lot of different smaller scale stuff just to help keep the ball rolling at the same time.
So when you're working with big corporations like ProMedica, how much is the final design of your sculpture? How much of it was your vision that drove it, and how much of it was theirs? And how did you come to terms? Did you find any pushback from what you had, or did they initially have the original concept, or how did you work together with them?
So yeah, so ProMedica pushback on design. No, we didn't get any. Like they were. Once we finally started giving out the proposals and we showed the final design, they were all about it. They wanted to make it well, at first we wanted to just put lawn in there instead of the way it sits now. But they said, no, hey, we want to make it more user-friendly for people to walk through. So then that's when they brought in a landscaping company to help out a little bit. But we worked with the landscaping company specifically, every step of the way. So that way we made sure exactly the way we wanted it. ProMedica, I can't tell you, they were so helpful on just giving us the tools and things that we needed to make this project happen. And Randy Ostra and his vision to what he's doing right now, it's incredible. Like, he really is about community and making things work here. So, and that's, I mean, I can't thank ProMedica enough for helping us out. And because some companies don't do that. But ProMedica worked with us, and so did the Arts Commission, and everybody worked together as a community. And that's the other part about art building community is all these corporations and companies working together to help grow the community with art. So that's pretty awesome. So.
All right, let's give it up for Dane.
Cool. Thank you.